Zoe, I see it in your eyes, Amina said softly. You are ready. The spirits have spoken to you. Yes, mother, Zoe replied, her heart swelling with pride and determination. I will follow their guidance. As Zoe embarked on her journey, her story began to spread beyond Kijiji, reaching neighboring villages and distant cities. People came from far and wide to seek her wisdom and guidance, drawn by the aura of peace and power that surrounded her. She became a spiritual leader and healer, a guardian of the ancient ways who helped others find harmony with the earth and the spirits. Meanwhile, the story of Nurse Nia continued to live on, though it was no longer a tale of a nurse who had failed. It became a story of redemption, for those who sought to make amends could always find their way back to the light. In time, Nia herself became part of the legend, a symbol of the consequences of greed and the power of the spirits to correct wrongs. One day, long after Zoe had left the village, word came back to Kijiji that a woman who had once been known as Nurse Nia had returned. She had wandered through many lands, struggling with the weight of her past actions. The greed that once filled her heart had long faded, replaced by a deep sorrow and a longing for forgiveness. Her journey had been one of self-reflection and repentance, and she sought out Zoe, hoping for redemption. When Nia arrived at the edge of Kijiji, she was a changed woman, no longer the young, ambitious nurse who had once sought to steal a life for her own gain. Instead, she was a weary traveler, humbled by the years and the lessons learned along the way. She stood before Zoe, trembling. Please, she begged, I have come to ask for your forgiveness. I was blinded by greed, and I stole a life. I harmed an innocent child. I cannot undo what I did, but I wish to make amends. Zoe, who had become a wise leader and healer, gazed at the woman standing before her. She saw the deep remorse in Nia's eyes and felt the sincerity of her words. For a moment, Zoe was silent, listening to the whispers of the spirits, seeking their guidance. The spirits spoke softly, and Zoe nodded in understanding. Nia, she said, her voice calm and gentle, the earth has not forgotten you, nor have the spirits. But it is your heart that must heal first. You cannot change the past, but you can work to make the future better. You must use the life you have now to help others, to restore what you once sought to destroy. Nia bowed her head, her tears falling freely now. I will do whatever it takes. Please, show me how I can make it right. And so, Zoe led Nia on a new path, a path of healing and redemption. Together, they traveled across villages, teaching others about the sacredness of life and the importance of living in harmony with the earth and the spirits. Nia, who had once been blinded by greed, became a humble servant to those in need, using her knowledge of medicine to help those who had suffered in silence, just as she once had. In the end, Nurse Nia became known not as a thief, but as a healer, a woman who had learned the greatest lesson of all, that true wealth lies not in material gain, but in the kindness and love one offers to the world. Her story was woven into the fabric of Kijiji's history, a reminder to all who live there that even the darkest mistakes could lead to the brightest transformations if one was willing to seek redemption. And so, the village of Kijiji thrived, its people living in peace with the earth, the spirits, and each other. And Zoe, the child who had once been saved, grew to become a leader who reminded all that the balance between the seen and unseen was sacred, and that the spirits, like the earth, always found a way to heal the broken and guide the lost. Years passed, and Zoe's name became known beyond the borders of Kijiji. People traveled from distant villages, seeking her wisdom, her healing hands, and the connection she had with the spirits. She had grown into a woman of great wisdom, respected as a spiritual guide and healer, carrying the blessings of her ancestors wherever she walked. The winds whispered her name, and the rivers seemed to flow in her honor, for the spirits had indeed chosen her as their vessel on earth. One day, a troubled chief from a neighboring kingdom sought her counsel. His people had been suffering from a great drought, their lands barren, and their wells dry. No offering or prayer had seemed to appease the spirits, and he feared his ancestors had turned their backs on him. When he arrived at Kijiji, his regal robes were dulled with dust, and his eyes were heavy with sorrow. "Wise Zei," he said, bowing before her. "My people are dying, our crops have failed, and our children go to sleep hungry. I have offered sacrifices, but the spirits remain silent. I fear that I have lost their favor. Tell me, what must I do to restore balance?" Zei closed her eyes and listened, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the dry soil, and she heard the spirits whisper. When she opened her eyes, she spoke with certainty. "The earth has not abandoned you, chief. But greed has taken root in your land. There is a man among your people who hoards what should be shared, who takes from the land but does not give back. The spirits do not punish without reason, they seek balance. You must find the one who disrupts the harmony and make amends. Only then will the rains return." The chief's face grew pale, for he knew exactly of whom Zei spoke. His own brother, a wealthy landowner, had grown selfish, refusing to share his granaries with the starving villagers and taking more from the land than it could give. With Zei's guidance, the chief confronted his brother and demanded he return what he had hoarded. When the man finally relented and the villagers were given their share, the sky darkened with heavy clouds, and the long-awaited rain fell that night. As Zei continued to travel, she found herself drawn to places where the spirits' whispers were the loudest. She encountered rulers who had lost their way, villages haunted by past mistakes, and people who had forgotten how to live in harmony with the earth. And in every place, she reminded them of the balance they must uphold. Meanwhile, Nia continued her journey of redemption. She worked tirelessly to help the sick and wounded, never asking for wealth or reward. Her name, once spoken with anger, began to be spoken with quiet admiration. She never sought to erase her past, only to make peace with it. One evening, after years of traveling, Nia returned to Kijiji. She did not come as a hero, nor did she expect forgiveness, but she came with the hope that she might stand before Zei one final time. She found Zei sitting beneath the great baobab tree, listening to the wind as it rustled through the leaves. "You have returned," Zei said, her voice carrying neither judgment nor surprise. "Yes," Nia whispered. "I have spent my years trying to right my wrongs, but I do not ask for the past to be forgotten. I only seek to know, have I done enough?" Zei looked deep into Nia's eyes and saw not the woman who had once tried to steal her away, but a woman who had been reshaped by her own remorse. The spirits hummed softly in the air around them, and Zei listened. "The spirits say you have walked the path of redemption, and you have honored the life you once sought to harm. Your debt has been paid, Nia. The only thing left is to forgive yourself." Tears fell down Nia's face, not of sadness, but of relief. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of her past truly lift from her shoulders. From that day on, Nia remained in Kijiji, not as a nurse of greed, but as a healer of hearts. She worked alongside Zei, ensuring that the village continued to thrive and that the balance between earth, spirit, and humanity was always maintained. And so, the legend of Zei and Nia continued to be passed down, no longer just a cautionary tale, but one of redemption, balance, and the unbreakable bond between the spirits and those who chose to listen.